her son bought the very latest of gadgets, and as a parent, she was wondering how the child was able to get that much money to buy what he bought. And so her instincts sprang up and she was worried. After her investigations, she only found out that her son was into esports and there's big money to be made in that part. And so, I mean, she just brought that up on Twitter, and there was a lot of conversation on by individuals seeking to get to understand exactly what is happening. For a lot of people, they do not know that there is a world like this where individuals are gathering in their numbers and being active participators of. But we'll delve into straight up our first panel session conversation for today, and that will be on growing a startup, the business of esports and game development in Africa. And I'll just introduce our guest who will be helping us have that conversation. Lawyer Harold Fearson, he's into fintech and an SME lawyer. Let's put our hands together as he takes up a seat for us as we begin the first session here today. And then as well, is a name that resonates for a lot of sports lovers here in the country. Did a big media transfer last year thereabout. Fentu Tahiru with Joy Sports as well. He's here with us. Let's put our hands together for him. And then Odilia in Tiamwa. She will join us pretty shortly, as well as Cyril Gokel. He's a CEO of Rich City FC as well. They'll join us shortly. But our moderator for this session will be none other but Selom Sikanku. He'll take us to the conversations so we can gain a lot more insight. Let's put our hands together for him.
Welcome to everybody. Thank you, Eric, for the introductions. So like you mentioned, we'll be speaking, our first session will be on growing a startup, the business of esports and game development in Africa. I'm more than glad and honored to have two distinguished persons, a lawyer who would help us navigate legal intricacies of startups, business development, and then also, like Eric already mentioned, a stalwart in the media space, Fentu Tahiru, who would also help us understand the issues with communication, media, and to an extent marketing in building a brand in Ghana, well specifically we're looking at Ghana, but across the continent as well. So thank you, gentlemen, for your time this morning. So I guess first things first, how do you create a startup? That's what I'll start with. What would be the framework? What would be the initiating thoughts you should have? Obviously, you have an idea, you want to create a business. It's not just what's in your head. What are the legal implications of a startup?
Thank you very much for having me today. To answer your question, what are the steps you must take to have a startup, to form a startup? Before you even go to the legal and regulatory aspects, you have to understand that esports industry is just like any other startup in any other sector, fintech, agritech, regtech, what have you. So in order to, before you even delve into the legal and regulatory aspects, you have to ask yourself, you have to come up with a business idea. The business idea is the first formative step. You can't have a business and go on to register and think about the legal intricacies without having a business idea. So you have to research, go into the market, find out whether or not there are so many sectors under the esports industry. You may be into game development, maybe to event organization, and so on, and what have you. So first of all, you have to come up with an idea, do some research, ascertain whether or not that idea is viable in the market. Then after that, you go on to create a business idea, a business plan. Then from the business plan, you now start thinking about the legal and regulatory intricacies. As a startup in the esports industry, you're a business. Come up with a name which is not already used by somebody else. Then you now go to the regulatory aspects, incorporation, and all of that. Before you even think about the incorporation aspect, what kind of business entity should my startup be? Should it be a sole proprietorship? Should it be a partnership? Should it be a limited company? A limited company? Each of these business entities have their advantages and disadvantages with respect to legal and regulatory framework. So now, you choose a business entity. The next step is legal and regulatory compliance. It's important for businesses, not just in the esports industry, but businesses in general, to realize that as a business, you don't operate in a vacuum. You operate in a regulated and legalized space. And in a regulated and legalized space, there are rules and regulations and directives in which you have to adhere to. Normally for businesses, the most important thing they think about is funding, how to get money, how to meet investors, pitch ideas, all these things. But it's very important to realize that the lifeblood of every business, whether you're in the esports industry, fintech, whatever, is regulatory compliance. So there are so many regulators in the business space, in the business landscape. We have the Office of the Registered Companies, and so on and so forth. They all have their regulations and directives. It's important that you have to adhere to filing your annual returns, paying tax. All of these things help in ensure the sustainability of your business. So that's a quick snapshot of how you can form a startup.
Right.
Thank you. I'll let Tyrell have it.
Sure. It's interesting in your beginning to say that as forming a startup in esports isn't entirely different from other startups in other industries. And also you mentioned about the viability of the business.
Exactly.
You don't just get up and say, oh, I want to do this, and then jump on anything. So I guess that's also understanding your markets, opportunities, doing a SWOT analysis, and all of that. And so going through all of that, and then obviously at the end, you've decided, well, it's viable. Say I want to develop game studio, develop a game, create a game. You've done your analysis, you figured out it's viable, you've gone through your regulatory things, registered a company, found a name, like you said, first of all, found a name, registered your tax implications and all of that. Say you've done all of that, and things are coming to you on this one. You've done all of that. When you've created a business, you are not going to hide it, are you? Important thing, like you mentioned, lawyer mentioned, you're looking for the money. You're looking for funding, either from investors or others, or you're looking to sell the product and raise money that way. What's important for startups in the form of communication, being out there, being seen, and by extent, your marketing?
Yeah, I believe once you create a new business, marketing it's absolutely critical. How you get your product out there, because like you rightly mentioned, you can't hide it. I mean, there are different kinds of businesses. Some of them, of course, depending on what you do, it can inform your approach to marketing, your approach to branding. Now, esports is one of those that people can have the false idea that it has a natural market. It has a market, all right, but if you hide behind it, people are not just going to come into you. It's just as competitive as any other field. And I always tell everybody into esports that you have to approach esports like the normal sports market. It's huge with multiple disciplines that you have to contend with. The big advantage for esports, obviously, is that you also have other aspects of the sport that doesn't exist in traditional sports. So once you create the business, you have a name, you have everything, it's time for you to do marketing and branding. And I think one thing that most people don't take seriously is brand identity and brand personality. These two things are very important. You have to be known for something. So if you are the one you're into product development, you're not the only one into product development, or you run a studio, you're not the only one who runs a studio. What makes your studio different? What makes your studio stand out? What kind of personality does it ooze? Does it look like a place where people can come and have fun? Or does it look like a place that stresses people? So that personality is important. You need to create it. And to create your brand personality, you need to ask yourself a few questions. Who are we? What do we stand for? What do we want the people that come here to take from this place? If you can answer all those questions, you can have a brand personality. Going into the marketing, there's something called the 4 P's of marketing. Your product, the price, your promotion. So these are all very important. So what's the product that you're selling? What are you selling to the people? What price are you putting on it? What kind of promotions are you running? So one of the things that I really want to focus on is this. And when it comes to the promotional aspect, I think it's very essential that most people understand that esports, even though it's such a massive industry, as of 2020 was estimated at about 1.4 billion. By 2029, it's an industry that should run into 5 billion. It's a lot of money. It's more developed in other aspects, in other markets than it is here. It is very important that you recognize where you find yourself in the market. In Ghana, there is still a perception issue when it comes to esports. And this has to be addressed. How many parents would be more than happy to go and buy their kid a game? Usually they see you playing a game, the perception is that you're not a serious kid. But we know that people in esports are making millions and millions of dollars. Our parents don't know that yet. So think about it this way, that esports is at a time that football was back in the 80s, where if you came from school and you went to play football, your mother would come and look for you at the playground and slap you. That's where esports is now. If you come from school, you go to play a game, your parents will look for you and they will slap you. So it's essential for us to look at it from that marketing perspective and change the communication. So if you build a studio, you have to be able to communicate and make parents understand that this is an opportunity and not a waste of time. So it's essential. So they have to see that there are opportunities for their children. So find role models, provide education, bring the parents in, talk to them, even go to the schools, make them understand, show them what the future looks like with esports. Because right now, nobody calls esports. In fact, it's so developed that we no longer call esports people gamers. In the professional sports world, they call them e-athletes. So it is a sport. And right now, last year, the Commonwealth Games, it was a sport that was played by teams. The International Olympic Committee is organizing a 4-day event in Singapore. So it is a massive, massive opportunity. So communication is essential. And once the way you communicate is to try and get parents and get people to understand that it is not a waste of time, that it's an opportunity for people to actually get careers out of them. Because there are people now, like, look at the Twitch streaming numbers now. There are more subscribers to games and to Twitch than there are on Netflix. It's crazy. There are more subscribers to e-gaming platforms than there are to Netflix, than there are to Amazon. So it's a massive market. I've seen, and now instead of just only playing in the virtual world, esports is transcending the virtual world now into the physical. They host games in arenas. I'm sure you all see them with 30,000 people in a stadium. And maybe the general sports who are here like football, I have bad news for you. The research shows that people that are aged 21 to 26, majority of them are drifted towards esports. In fact, the viewership for the Premier League in America, for example, is dropped by 19%. Viewership for the NBA is dropped by 9%. Viewership on the NFL is dropped by 18%. Conversely, the viewership for e-gaming platforms have increased monumentally by more than 30%. And it's one of the reasons, for example, UEFA wanted to come up with the Super League. You'll remember, because they did the research and they found out that young people were no longer interested in actually watching sport. And not just not interested in watching sport, they are actually not interested in playing. More of them are now interested in, because I mean, who wants to go and run around the field for 2 hours when you can sit behind a console and kill it? You know? So I think the communication and all of these things that I'm talking about are things that parents don't know about. And I keep saying parents because I know that with esports, just like every other sport, it's essential to target the youth. And the youth usually will come with restrictions. Because if you want to develop a game, you want to run a studio, the only way your business will be sustainable, just like in football, just like in basketball, is to start with young kids. And then you grow with them. Most businesses make that mistake. And I think several businesses right now, even in the traditional sports world, have made that mistake. That's why even viewership for the Olympic Games has reduced. And that's why there's a big cry now for them to include esports in the Olympics. Because the viewership is reducing because the audience is getting older. The younger audience are no longer interested. So you target the youth. And if you're going to target children, you need to work on the communication. And that communication target should be esports has a future. It's a field where you can actually get a career out of and market it from that point of view. As for the other things like running promotions, if you have people signing up, I mean, your first few months, you can give it as a discount. Maybe like you can say the first 100 people to sign up, you get a 50% discount. On the promotion, that is brilliant. Moderately priced, of course. So you can do activations, even at traditional sports games. Black Stars is playing a football match, you can do an activation. Because that's one area, one place where you will get a lot of people gathering at the same time. Ordinarily, if you want to go around and walk around the street, you will never reach that many people. So you find events on campus, you do activations, talk to teachers, you can organize symposiums. All of those things give you access to people, access to markets. So in terms of promotions, these are some of the things that you can do. The other things, obviously, including your t-shirts and branding, those things go without saying. And I think that the marketplace for esports right now is absolutely incredible. One other thing I want to add, there are actually people that are making the transition from esports from a virtual world into the physical world. I don't know if any of you knows about this guy called Van Buren. For McLaren, 2017, McLaren organized a competition called the World's Fastest Gamer. He was a sales executive in the Netherlands. He joined, he won. And what did he get? A contract with an F1 team, McLaren, to work for their simulator team. So he's made the effective transition from virtual gamer to the actual physical world, where he now has a very successful career working for an F1 team. It's unbelievable, the opportunities that exist in e-gaming.
Awesome. And I want to follow up on one of the few things or the last things you mentioned about the marketplace for esports. Now, Lawyer, I'll come to you about the money bits about it. So, for example, you mentioned 1 billion in about 2020.
2029, 5 billion.
5 billion, yeah. So the African market now is probably estimated around 3 billion. And that's across the continent. We know that some simulators are being paid $5,000 a month as athletes. When you have a startup, obviously, as a business, your end goal is to make money, is to have revenue. We want to pay ourselves. Like Fenton was saying earlier, we need to show our parents, or we need to show older generations or sketchers that it's a viable revenue generating career path. That is the word. Yeah. But before I come to that, I just wanted to also follow up on bridging traditional sports, because we're a huge sports country. We like to be pride ourselves in that we're a football loving nation. You mentioned the thing about targeting those who attend football matches and local football matches. I know that Ligue 1 in France have an E-League, an official E-League that they run. The Premier League also has, I don't know about Spain though, but at least in these two countries, the official FAs run E-Leagues. How do you think, for us in Ghana, and also tying it into a startup, that's a free business idea for someone who wants to take that up. How do we marry, how do we bridge the traditional sports, and also use that as an opportunity to convince the older generation, the regulators, those in senior positions now that esports, whether football, volleyball, rugby, swimming, tennis, any of them are as a good opportunity for young people.
Yeah, to answer the question on bridging the gap, the Ghana Football Association actually, this is an initiative by FIFA too, the esports, the eFootball, and last year, I don't know if any of you is aware, the GFA actually had representatives, people represent Ghana to compete in the FIFA E Series. So it's already running, but I think traditionally what usually happens is, it's like, the esports, football, and sports in general, there is historical antecedent about how even football clubs were created. And it's the same way I think we can bridge that gap between what we have now and what the future is, and the future being esports. So if you look at, let's say, England in the late 1800s into the early 1900s, when sports started. Other sports were much older than football. So cricket. So you notice a lot of football clubs that are named athletic actually didn't start with football. So if you see Charlton Athletic or Athletic Bilbao, it means that they were doing something else. And then football came, then they created a football club. You get it? So they were maybe involved, Sheffield Wednesday were involved in cricket. And they were only playing football as a recreational sport on Wednesdays. And then they decided to turn it into, so just like maybe we now have a football club and we're playing e-game on Wednesdays. And then eventually we decide to form a football club. And then exactly. That's how some of those football clubs came about. The same way the traditional sports are transitioning into esports as well. So you realize that a lot of the football clubs are now building associations they're building teams from the virtual world as well. And you see, it's actually very important for them because we are aware that, in fact, all of these games, they pay royalties to these football clubs for using their content, for using their players, their logos, their everything. So the success of these e-games actually will inure to the benefit of these football clubs. So it's in their interest to create them. We don't have that market here. So that's a massive opportunity. If somebody could come up with something that involves these clubs and get them to sign up, it would be in their interest that it succeeds because they get something from it as well. And I think it becomes a win-win situation for everyone. And you mentioned the other leagues that are already doing it. The Ghana Premier League isn't doing it. That's a massive opportunity there for a game developer to try and have a look. Because trust me, that's the future. That's where everybody is going. Because whether or not we like it or we don't, there will be a time that will come. So if you take the lead on that now, the better for you, because that's going to happen. The reason F1 has become so popular now is because of the F1 E-Series that they run. And F1 E-Series is probably the most relatable, the most realistic e-game in the history of e-games. Because what they drive, the cars they drive in the E-Series, the amount of data that they're dealing with, tire pressure, speed, corners, everything, is exactly like what it is in an F1 race. About 300 different data points you're dealing with all at the same time. So that transition from the virtual world to the realistic world, it's actually much closer than we think. So I think there are opportunities to do that. And the Western world have shown us the future. Somehow they always seem to be showing us the future, the opportunities. But I think in Ghana, that opportunity exists in our football, where we can try and create, and not just football. We also, thank you, all the other sports as well.
All right. So if anybody from here or watching does build create a startup like that, Tinto and I have 45% shares in it for the free idea. Yeah. But no, so about the money, it is always about the money, isn't it? Where does a startup sit? Do you come in, you create a business and think I want to solve a solution, and then work towards the solution and hope the money comes in? Because again, like you said, there's what 3 billion available, or supposed estimated available that comes in the sponsorship. Like Pinto mentioned, clubs are being paid for using their logos, players, and effigies like in the games and all of that. Brands are sponsored, are paying to be featured in the games. What are the startups? Do you come in and say that, like, listen, let me see, table tennis, for example, or let me use the rugby league, for example. This is the viewership on like the fiscal viewership for the club. Do I come in and say I want the money to do this, or do I build the system? Do I build the market, and then have the brands now say that, like, listen, this looks good, this looks like it has a lot of traction, so here's the money to continue doing what you're doing.
Thank you for the question. The thing that naturally investors just don't want to pump money into something they don't see is realistic in the long run. So my suggestion, from my opinion, is that have the idea, research on the idea, bring it into fruition, have an MVP, a minimum viable product. Then you go pitch into the investors. There's a lot, like he said, there's a lot of money, there's big money, it's a big booming business, it's involving big booming business, a lot of revenues raking into the industry every year. However, investors are not philanthropists. They don't just sit down there handing out money, not for the Christmas. They want to see the idea, see how viable it is before they take their hands into their deep pockets and issue with the cash. And startups in the esports industry are not different from any other startup. I keep on saying it. Although we are in a unique and evolving landscape, unique and evolving sector of the startup ecosystem, we are just like other startups in the space. Therefore, if you are going to an investor, you are still going to have to meet the same checklist that investors are looking for in any other startups, in any other businesses, in any other sectors. So first of all, they want to look at they want to know your idea. So you have to come up with something, and then reach them, and then show them what you got. You have to see that what they have is marketable in the long run, is viable in the long run, because no one wants to pump money into a business that will fail in the long run. They are businessmen, like I said, they are not Father Christmas, they are not philanthropists. You expect returns in the long run. So you have to go do your research, ascertain whether your product or your start, perhaps you may want to start up a game development studio. Maybe you think you are doing something that other competitors in the market are not doing. So you have that idea, you need to the investors, you pitch to them, and if they are convinced, they get on board and then they give you the money. So my perspective is that you have to start the way first, start the groundwork first, reach somewhere. If you are making rounds in the market, invest. You don't even have to go to the investor will come to you. Because just like how he said, it's a big booming business, and investors they are noticing. They are noticing. They realize that there's money to be spent. There's money to be spent. So they will even come to you. And even investors today, looking at other business sectors, this all ties into ESG goals and sustainability goals. Esports industry is an industry that has minimum harm to the environment. It's not like other sectors like agri or in other sectors that may have some harmful changes to the environment. So investors are already willing. You just have to show them that what they are investing or what they want to invest in is viable in the long run. So you have to come up with an idea, pitch to the investors. All investors have checklists that they go through in order to determine whether or not they will part with their money or not. That's why I keep on saying regulatory compliance is important. As an esports business, the mere fact that esports business doesn't mean that you are exempt from the rules and regulations that are applicable to all other businesses or other startups in the business landscape. No, investors want to see that their money. They want assurance that the money that is into your business will have some maintenance in the long run. That's why regulatory compliance is very important. If you go and sit with investors and if they go through your books and they realize that you're not keeping proper accounting records, you don't file annual returns, you don't file beneficial ownership, data, you don't disclose. For you know, there's a hidden owner behind I may come to you as a business. Fento is the front runner. When there's some big politician at the back, if you don't file the facial ownership disclosure data, you don't know which politician is backing Fento. So,
which is a risk.
exactly, which is a very serious risk. Has anti-money laundering risk, anti-corruption risk, and all of these. So it's important for you to be regulatory and legally compliant with all the rules and the regulations. Also, another checklist that startups have to take into consideration is very important is IP protection. Because, like I said, like I keep on saying to everyone I meet about this topic, the esports industry is not just about playing video games. It's not just about esports tournaments. There are a lot of things. There's content creation. There's esports infrastructure and technology. As the esports industry is evolving, technology evolves. In fact, it is technology that's spiraling the growth of the esports industry out of control. Like he said, for instance, the Formula One E series, the esports, it's technology that runs this thing. So yes, if you're a game developer, if you come up with a similar technology, maybe it's an Oculus, it's a virtual reality. The game is with a virtual reality landscape. You need to wear some goggles or have some equipment to wear your arms and your wrist, your body, whatever. Investors need to know that the IP or the intellectual property behind that technology is safe, that is protected. It's not something that other competitors are using on the market. I mean, it is set aside apart from other players, because the industry is very competitive. You need to stand out. If you want money, everyone wants money. Like 30, 40 startups, 50 startups chasing like 1, 2, 3, 4 investors. What are they going to give the money to? They can't give the money to everybody else. They want 1 or 2 or 3 solid brands, solid startups, which they can invest the money to, and then get their returns and they move on and they go away. That's the whole goal of investment. That's the whole goal. That's the whole idea. That's the whole point behind investment. So IP is very important. Keeping good tracks or good records of your financials, good corporate governance, conflict of interest, all of these things that are prevalent for other startups will also be applicable for businesses in the startup esports ecosystem. When you do that, trust me, the money will come through. There's so much money. Business always think that banks and other potential investors are hoarding money. But there's lots of money to be made. The startup ecosystem in general, not just esports, is a very booming ecosystem. There's lots of money to be made. You just have to present yourself, present your idea, catch it, intrigue the investor, and then the money will flow. That's what I have to say in respect to this matter.
Interesting. We'll be wrapping up in a bit, but before we go, 2 things I want to ask our panelists this morning. The first would be the challenges, like you mentioned, the esports startup aren't that much different from other startups, fintech, agritech, whatever. What would be some of these challenges that anybody going into business would want to look out for and plan for, obviously, before they get into it? And the other thing too would also be, and also your legal experience, what would be a good trajectory, for example? Say I start as a player, or let's say I start as a studio, a game developer. I create a studio, I want to do something similar to Superman, for example. 2 years down the line, I feel like, this isn't working. As a business, as a startup, what are the opportunities for me to say transition into something else, or leave the studio development side altogether and say go into content creation or become a player myself? And those will be the challenges of startups in general, and then like a growth or a transition opportunity or challenge again later down the line. That would be the first section to look at. And then also and this is very random and generic. What do you think would be the one catalyst for esports in Africa, esports and game development in Africa? A landmark event, a series of events that would say like now esports has entered mainstream. So let's look at the challenges first. But before we do that, we've been joined by Cyril, Cyril. I'm also inviting on stage. We've been surely expecting you, an activist and also someone who is generally very passionate about startups in Ghana and Africa. So before we come to this, we've already had some conversation. Harold and Fento have. Harold has definitely given us some insight into the legal implications, how to do your startup. Sarah has spoken about communication, the marketing, but showing opportunities from other markets and what we can do in Ghana and Africa to grow the space. I'll do the challenges and then we'll jump into you as well. What challenges are facing startups in general, and then we look at specifically for esports. Yeah, yes.
Okay, so I think there are two or three main challenges. The first challenge I spoke about is how to acquire funding. I've spoken at length on it, so I don't think I have to reiterate it. Now, the second challenge that I think is a big issue is government recognition of the esports industry. Like Fento said, the GFA they began some initiatives, there be some one or two, but it's not enough. Currently, the Gaming Commission is the main regulatory body that governs the gaming industry. But when you look at the Gaming Act, Act 721, it does not currently cover esports industry because the Gaming Act was enacted in 2006. So it covers the traditional games such as things like gambling, casino, promotional gaming, sports betting, yeah, all those things. It's 2006. At that time, esports was not as big as it. And currently, for some strange reason, our legislators have not had that foresight to amend the act to include esports or the esports industry into the scope and jurisdiction of the Gaming Commission. So I think that's one of the real challenges because, like I said, investors, in addition to invest, one aspect of or one other thing that investors look for in the investor checklist when deciding whether to even invest in businesses, they want some safeguard of assurance that they are not entering into any risky venture, any risky industry. And having some form of government recognition, assuming it's the esports industry or online video gaming business was licensed or recognized, and any esports startup hub or any of the key players in the system could acquire some permit or license, that will give it more recognition, more validity, so that foreign investors, people who have the money, will see, they go to your documents, oh, you are licensed by this authority, you are licensed by this organization. Oh, sure, fair enough. It's just like investing in a startup, a fintech, in the bank, in the financial sector. That's why if you want to invest in a fintech startup, and they are licensed and regulated by the Bank of Ghana. If you are going to seek funding for any foreign investors, they have assurance that you are probably compliant to regulations and laws. That's why you are even licensed in the first place. So that we don't have instances like Main's Gold, you invest some money into something and then it ends up being a scam, a Ponzi scheme, and then you're now chasing Bank of Ghana for your money. Bank of Ghana is telling you that you were not licensed in the first place, so it's your fault and all of these things. So government recognition is very, very, very key. That's something that we as members of the esports industry, esports ecosystem, we have to impress on the government. It's not just enough. All these events, these networks, these seminars, all of these projects, initiatives are important, but we won't reach anywhere if government does not step into the plate to give us the official recognition. And what he said earlier, that we need to change the narrative, the perspective, the communication. We need to stop seeing the esports industry or playing video games as there's a mere pastime or recreation. So that if your mother or father comes home and sees you playing game, you think you're not serious, go and learn, go and pick up books. I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer. Even continuing what he said, I'm even guilty of this because sometimes I love him. When I even currently organizing a career day event for schools in our locality, located at Ogojo. And we are just focused on using social media technology and then career development, like the general career that parents always want to be a lawyer, be a doctor, be an engineer, be a journalist. Exactly. I mean, it's so cliche. Like everybody wants grow up when you have a child, when you grow up, want the child to be a lawyer. It's so cliche. There are so many other industries, there are so many opportunities that we can take advantage of. People just don't know. Even they know, they have a bad perception about it. So we need to change that narrative. We need to repurpose the communication. Yeah. And one way of doing that is through government recognition. If we can collaborate or we can be licensed or be recognized by government, parents and even other stakeholders will understand that esports is not just playing FIFA or just going to the cafe to go and play games. It's actually a viable career path which can lead to somewhere. So government recognition is very key and very important. And also that last issue I want to talk about is community engagement. And the way the esports industry is functions or plays out, although there's evolving technology in the initiatives and projects and so far and so forth. Community engagement is very important because it's one of the industries where you need, in order to grow and improve, you need feedback from the ecosystem players and so on. It starts from the e-athletes. You don't call them video game players, you call them e-athletes now. From the e-athletes, from the esports tournament organizers like you guys organizing these events, from game development studios, investors, and so on and so forth. The only way this ecosystem can grow is through collaboration and community engagement. I realized anytime I used to play FIFA, or if you play FIFA online, you realize that a lot of times FIFA does the regular updates. And even on the screen, they provide reasons why these updates are being made. Maybe users of the game have complained that this particular feature is not good enough. Maybe this particular feature is good enough. You want to see this, you want to see that, you want to see this, you want to see that. So once there's community engagement and there's feedback from people who are playing the game, who are in the industry, those who are in charge of the industry, who are playing the industry, can take note of those feedback and better the industry. So community engagement with the key ecosystem players is very important and very key.
Any challenges you think?
Well, I think it's pretty much covered quite a lot. I was going to talk about the perception change, which he mentioned, and I mentioned that earlier. My first presentation is absolutely critical because I think most often than not, the way we perceive something can sometimes define our interest. So it's very important that we have a positive outlook about it. I would rather want to talk about the landmark issues that you ask. What could potentially be seen as a defining factor in terms of where we see esports? I think, first of all, one of the things that we are not doing maybe too well with, I know that, and he mentioned quite a lot of them about the challenges involved in starting, for example, if you're doing game development. That is absolutely, it's massive, it's a lot. So it's capital intensive, it's a lot of money. The other ones that, and this one is, for me, I think critical in that changing of a narrative, is event organizations. So we have a massive place like the Bukom Boxing Arena, for example, that can seat, I think, about 15,000 people. If one day we can fill that arena for an esports competition, I think it would be easy for us to say, you know what, we have reached. And I think that is actually something that can easily be done. And it comes down to marketing and promotions, media partnerships. A lot of the times, when we organize these competitions, even sometimes, and he mentioned that his law firm is guilty. I think my media company is guilty as well, in terms of where we dedicate our resources when it comes to promotions and partnerships. And I know some of you have probably had the experience where you've asked a media house for a partnership for an event and they don't seem interested because it's an esports and nobody seems to care about, game, a Kobo game day, nobody wants to. And I think, so that needs to change. And for me, I think if you show the dream to people like me, I would easily buy into it because I understand what it feels like and what the potential is. So that media sponsorship and media collaboration is extremely important because over the world, globally, one of the reasons esports is really flying is because of media. So streaming platforms like Twitch just offering their platform to just that. How many Ghanaian media companies are willing to offer their platform, open their platform up for just esports? We would open it up for football, but we wouldn't do it even for athletics or even for basketball. let alone esports. So that needs to change, and I think that's one of the biggest challenges that the people in this industry face. But I think when it comes to event organizations, I think it's one of the things that we should really look into, because the opportunities that I see, apart from just trying to develop your own games, we already have too many games in the system that you can use to organize a lot of competitions. So I'm looking at running studios from two perspectives. You can run a studio or an academy where you're trying to train people how to develop games. You can run another academy where you train people how to play games. And those are two completely different things. And you see, just like the way people run, for example, a big academy like Right to Dream in Old Accra, the Akosombo, you could run an esports academy. Maybe not, you don't need such a big campus, but you need a big hall where you could actually recruit people and train them 24/7. Where they go to school, you incorporate full academic work with e-gaming. Because I think that's where the future is going. And if you run an academy like that, it's more or less like a school. So that is, of course, you have to deal with all of the other institutions involved. But something like that, for me, I think it gives off a more viable options from my point of view. From the event point of view, for me, my office is open for events like that. If you want to organize an esports competition and you want to use an arena, you want massive promotions, come to me, let's talk, and then we can try and take it up, because I think that potentially we can do that. We can start to fill arenas, because we see it happen globally. People are filling 30,000, 40,000 arenas for e-games, and we just have the same. It was one point where people thought, nobody watched basketball in Ghana until, or nobody watches NFL. And then in the last few years, people are up at 2 in the morning, at 3 in the morning in Osu watching Super Bowl, or NBA Finals. It's late in the night, people are watching. And one of the biggest surprises was F1, when everybody thought, who wants to watch people just running around in circles in a car? Now, I dare say, if you organize F1 viewing with the season at a critical stage, and you organize, let's say, an EPL roadshow, public viewing between Man United and Liverpool, and you organize an F1 viewing at a critical point of the season where let's say, Lewis Hamilton and Verstappen are going at it, I dare say you would probably get more people at the F1 viewing than the football. It's crazy. It sounds ridiculous, but I've seen it before. We've organized a roadshow where there was a Bahrain Grand Prix ongoing, and then there was a Liverpool versus Arsenal match, and we had 2 giant screens. There were more people in front of the F1 screen than there were in front of the football screen. So it is changing. And there are more people that actually like to watch esports than, like I said before in my initial submission, than people like to watch traditional sports. And the short nature of the games, because now research also shows that the attention span of people is reducing drastically. Nobody wants to sit down for 2 hours. Esports, a football match, how long is it? 10 minutes? It's really short. And you can play multiple games, at a go, and people love that. So, let's look into that. For me, I think that's one place where I can really see us exploding, because eventually, if it becomes big, you can have international players coming in, signing up and competing for prize money. You have sponsors coming in, like you said, not just to sponsor the games that are being developed, but also visibility, because wherever there are numbers, people like that, obviously, because then it gives them certain mileage.
All right, awesome. So I want to talk to you, but before that, I was going to ask you, how do we get, and it was mentioned, the Google Sports Arena, how do we feel that, say, a random Saturday in October with fun esports events? But before that, I had to let Fento and Harold leave for other engagements. We've been really grateful for having you here. Your insights have been much appreciated. Thank you very much. We will please give them a round of applause as we focus our conversation with Cyril going for So like yes, let me think. The next big stage for us would be how do we get to a 15,000 capacity arena? How do we build a business into that space? How do we what's the next stage for us? How do businesses grow from 20 people playing FIFA, 30 people on sim race, Call of Duty, Valorant? How do we get into such big spaces?
I think, first of all, apologies for the late arrival. I got off air exactly at 10, so it was a bit tough getting here, but I'm here. So, to answer your question, I think the easiest way would be to activate the consumer base, the fans and the lovers of esports and these various games. Because as much as you might be a gamer, you are not just exclusively a gamer. You wear clothes, you use transportation, you consume daily products. There's a whole host of things you are to a whole other segment of brands out there. And when you are able to, like Fento said, able to amass enough attention around esports, then you have leverage. You can go to a brand that has absolutely nothing to do with esports, but based on an alternative value that you are giving them, they would be able to help you amplify such an event. And in amplify, I mean in terms of marketing. We all like to watch. People go on YouTube and watch these e-competitions all the time. I do it myself. If you're not on a Twitch or you're not an avid gamer yourself, competition is competition, right? Whether it's real life, him versus him, it's competition. So when you drive that competitive nature, what is number one trophy that every gamer wants? Bragging rights. Right? Before you mention the money and all that, the reason why you pick up a pad and say, Charlie, honor me go, is bragging rights. So the moment you activate bragging rights to a point where it becomes impactful, that people want to see who wins. What happens when you're gaming? Two people stand behind you, then it's 5. Then before you know, the whole room is full and it's just 2 guys playing. That euphoria can be amplified. How can it be amplified? With money. But at this point that we are in our esports lifespan, we don't necessarily have that kind of money to amplify those elements, to fill a space like the Bukom Arena until we bring on board muscle. But that muscle that you're going to bring needs to find value in coming along with you. So if it's, for example, a beverage company, telling a beverage company that I'm going to have 15,000 people at Bukom Arena and they are going to be solely refreshed with your water or your malt or your Coke. They don't care what game you are playing. All they hear is 15,000 consumers. So whatever they need to make sure they can help you get those 15,000 people into Bukom Arena, they'll do it. If it was a food brand and you said 15,000 people are going to be here for sure, let's say even 50% of them buy your product, that's 7,500 people in an afternoon. There's no marketing manager who will turn that down. So we need to think beyond what we are good at or what we are passionate about, that we like game, to see the value that exists in the gamer. The gamer is a walking consumer. It's a living, breathing consumer, consuming across the whole spectrum. Needs, wants, desires, aspirations. You are a consumer. So our game base, let's not just be playing the game and like the game. Let's think of the audience and the players as consumers as a whole. Then we can activate on various points and then we can get that external money in.
So I hear you say think outside the box. Let's look at
very, 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 very far outside the box.
Far outside. Think outside the console if you like.
Yeah.
Collaborations, partnerships, and all of that. Now you mentioned, well, I think that was part of the earlier submission. The ecosystem is made up of different elements. So broadly speaking, you have those who make the games, those who play the games, those who consume the game. One thing I think I found missing is those who share distribution, distribute the game. I mean, it would be similar to the music industry. Just because you make the first song in the studio doesn't mean that somebody sitting 3 regions away has heard it. For us, for the business, for those looking to start up, those looking to create businesses in esports or the game industry, where do you think what value you put on distribution?
I'd say distribution is a very, very, very valuable system to have in support of esports, because viewership is a big part of esports. And if you're not able to distribute either the game itself, information about the game, or the experience of viewing of the game being played, if you are not able to distribute these, then it's just your core, your niche audience who are still in love with it. So it's the same circle, that's going round. And that again taps into what French was saying. How do we make sure that mainstream media, which already has distribution on lock, right? How do we make sure that they care about esports enough to help us amplify it? Because now if you're able to put your gaming session or your gaming tournament on, let's say, 3 Music TV, if you do that now, it means everybody who is watching 3 Music TV automatically gets the opportunity to watch the game. And then there comes in the bragging rights. So let's say you do a promo and it's 2 eager players doing an exciting promo that actually waiting they can fight about. Game number no my once and click, there's a viewer. So now you tell 3 Music TV how they are going to get value from helping you reach that consumer in Techiman, or that consumer in Hohoi, or that consumer in Tamale. And the consumers are, like you said, the ones who are going to buy the games, the ones who are going to play the games, and the ones who want to watch the games being competed in. So we already have distributorship. We are just not activating the distributorship because we are not offering any unique selling propositions to the media outfits that have that distribution on lock. If you look at the Ghana Premier League, they play matches all across the country, but they don't have a problem with distribution because media is in love with football. So it could be the farthest part of Western region. They will send a camera crew and a Prado or a Hilux out into the farthest corner to go and cover that match, because Saturday morning sports review, people have to watch that. That's value. You might not necessarily be working at the channel and care about football, but you know that the football viewers on Saturday morning help you sell this, right? If they don't come and watch the sports program, the sponsorship, the ad space you are selling for this is useless. Right. So it's all about the tie-ins. We've been looking at it from the face value for a very long time. Game. The success of the esports industry has nothing to do with gamers. It has nothing to do with gamers. It has everything to do with who the gamers can influence, who the gamers can create intrigue from.
Wrapping up, we've been on this for a bit. Just, I think that final two, and I also want to ask you, what do you think would be the key landmark? I want to use landmark or the catalyst that would set us over into mainstream media or be a mainstream industry. But I also want to ask before that, what do you think? And this may be a personal thing. What do you think game development studios should look at? Should we mirror what people are doing in other countries? For example, you have God of War, or you have Superman, you have Spider-Man, whatever. Should a game developer in Ghana look to mirror those games and do what you call the Ghana Spider-Man or the Ghana Valorant or something? Or do you think that building interesting or uniquely local content would be the way to go?
Both options are right, depending on who you are and what you aim to achieve. There's already an ecosystem for games like God of War. There's already an ecosystem for games like Forza. There's already an ecosystem for games like FIFA, 2K, name it. There's already an ecosystem. If you want to be a player within that ecosystem, then the framework is already set out, right? What's the difference between Street Fighter, Tekken, and Mortal Kombat? Absolutely nothing. Colors, animation, names, sound effects, but the framework at the back is always the grid to select your players, one on the left, one on the right. Each player has a sign-in tagline, a victory tagline, a loss animation, a victory animation. There's either a fatality or a victory. The template is the same. What's the difference between Pro Evo and FIFA? Template is the same. Sure, some camera angles are different. They switch the buttons around, but it's the same thing. right? It applies over and over again. So if you want to fit in that ecosystem, then you need to go into that ecosystem knowing that EA has been doing this for 23 years or 24 years going. You are coming yesterday against EA, $1 billion company that can develop a game like this. Do you want to go and face the bull head on? Are you ready? You get some money? Cool. But if you are looking that you don't have the resources, you are looking to go on unique value, then you have to tap into your local experiences, into your environment. We have a ton of things that don't exist anywhere else in the world. We've just failed to commercialize them, right? We always have this narrative, Anna says the original Spider-Man. Yeah, you didn't commercialize it. They're telling us stories about Anansi and it was a joke and somebody makes stubborn, they say Anansi, then we laugh. Case closed. Spider-Man is $1 billion industry. Marvel and Sony are fighting. They've been fighting for 15 years about who owns it. We still have Anansi. What are we doing with it? Okonfanoche, Agokoli, our stories. What are we doing with it? Why is God of War more of a, let me use this language for gaming sake. Why is God of War more of a badass than Agokoli? Agokoli that left all his tribe and kinfolk and went out alone to go and deal with the enemy and came back. How is he not as much of a big issue like God of War? It's how you've branded him. It's how you've branded him. It's how you've activated him. It's how you've communicated him. You understand? Lara Croft and Yas Antoine. You sure? You sure say Lara Croft could sit up? No, think about it. Do you think Lara Croft will survive Yas Antoine? She not go sit up. But we've not activated it. We know how kick-ass Yas Antoine is, but who's getting the sketches right? Who's getting the mocap correct? Who's actually going and getting authentic sound bites or authentic language? You understand? When you are playing the video games and those symbols come on the screen, it's a make-believe symbol. We have real symbols. That means something. I could show somebody a symbol in this room and we all understand what it means. But it's valueless to us. But we are playing the Xbox, we are playing PS, some symbol come. You go tell your boss, oh, this be the health something. Why you go learn that for, bro? You understand? It's a mindset shift. We need to look around us and realize that we have all the raw materials. If you brought EA Sports here or you brought Activision here right now and said, you know what, take Agokoli, take Okonfanochi and Yas Antoine, these three characters, give me an epic with these three characters, all playable, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. The way we go rush by them, the thing we will see on YouTube on the trailer, the goosebumps you go get, you Bob, why are we not doing that? So I talk to a lot of developers, a lot of young guys. I want to do a game like this guy. I'm like, bro, China man do this already. White man do this already. They did eons. The first video game I had was in like 1990, I don't know, 91, 1990, like Master System 2, right? I had to get, Sega's first console was the Master System, and then they had the Master System 2. Before they had the Mega Drive, and then they had the Genesis CD, and then Saturn. Yeah, I grew. No, the game no be now. I'll be avid gamer. Don't be fooled. I will discipline you. So I got my tooth. I had a problem with my tooth, and I didn't want to get it out. And my dad convinced me that if I take my tooth out, they'll get me a Master System and Mortal Kombat. Bro, I was at the dentist like, come on, bro, may go. You understand? That's how serious and impactful game is to kids. So imagine if that game can tell a story, instill pride in them. Now they are not bragging about God of War. Nobody cares about Sub-Zero and Scorpion. Everybody cares about things that are of real value to us in our culture. Would you have a problem promoting this? You would have a problem promoting this, but it's because the concepts within which we base our hard work are foreign, right? If you take Forza and you make a game like Forza about Accra, sure, it will look like Accra. You can get all the skins, you can get all the models done, but it's not realistic to the psyche of the Ghanaian. Connection is not there, because I know Ghana road be nonsense. So if I'm going to play a game about Ghana roads, bro, I for the fire 200 Trotsky cross me. That for me the difficulty. You bab Trotsky cross me, if you bash Yawa, you start again. That's realistic. But to just clone N1, put some cars for top, blah, 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 blah. Yes, you will do it to perfection technically, but the consumer psyche is not connecting because we are not seeing something relatable. You get it? So for me, the easiest route for us is to look here and see how best we can take our authentic stories, our authentic shared experiences, and actually activate them as video games. We come, not the tennis, there's another game, you have forgotten the name, you play, you keep swinging forever. How is that different from Chaskele? It's not golf, there's another thing, that is squash there. How is that different from Chaskele? I won't Chaskele, the Konko and boys day body, they go shimmer for you. How different is that? Can we not replicate that in esports? That frustration you feel when they knock your Konko, you don't go to simulate them for TV top. You understand? Like, so I feel like we have these authentic games, and the name is esports. So it's still the same sport. It's just electronic. It's e-games. It's still the same games. It's just electronics. We don't have to make it foreign to make it a success, right? Panzer Dragoon was a big hit in Asia long before Americans even heard of it. Crash Bandicoot was a big hit in Asia before even Americans and Europeans heard of it. Most of the great epic games, Final Fantasy, was big in Asia before Yankee people come read Duamentis. The original Final Fantasy was in Japanese or something. Wasn't even in English. You could have played then Koriko's Mayo. Mentias but I did the machine back. Bro, at the press keyboard, click, click, click. I'm not a bab. You understand? Because they knew that Final Fantasy would resonate with that population. So they didn't care what was happening in America and all that. Street Fighter, it's not American. You see, so it's easy for you to look home and find something that's nowhere else, and you will have a better understanding of that thing than anybody else. If you go bring Activision or EA right now to do that epic I spoke about, the first thing they are going to do is recruit resource people, local people. Do you understand the character? Give us an insight. Then you speak the sense you have, you take all, give them to go and do and sell to you. So you have the gem. You are just not activating it. The first thing they go do is that they go put out an ad. Are there any game developers in Ghana? We are trying to create a Konfanochi. How do you think he would communicate? Then you go give them all the gist again. Make they go do for you. So for me, if you have the muscle and you can take on EA and Activision and Namco and the rest, no problem. But if we are really in startup phase and Africa's esports landscape is the way we are saying it is, and we are now trying to find investment and amplification and impact and all that, nothing is going to be more attractive to an investor than something unique.
So the very last one, before we ask you wrap up, would be and this is key for me, the land market. What do you think? What do we have to do, or where do we have to go, or what do we have to stop doing maybe to take us over? Like we discussed startup, but go from being an asset in the industry into a more established and more appreciated and recognized industry as across esports and game development. And then on the wider scale, like
Collaborate.
That's your one way answer.
Listen, I know, like I said, I know a lot of developers in Africa, and we are criminally underfunded, right? And even technology-wise, what is happening with the West with regards to gaming, they are eons ahead of us. Until we collaborate and join forces and elevate each other's products or each other's creations, we will not be able to make a big enough impact in the gaming world to get people's attention. Yes, it's good to do your thing as a team. Me and my 5 guys, we develop some game. We pay some people for a year to do this code for us. This person do that, this person, sure, right? When the West had those stories, there were no gamers. The time you'd hear there's 2 guys in the basement programming some, writing some game, there was no competition. Now the consoles and the games and Steam gaming and all this, Charlie, now you don't even need cartridge. Bro, you used to need to carry the cartridge to go and play. Now you have Steam, you have broadband. You just subscribe to the game you want to play. The landscape is changing. If you, a Ghanaian developer, wanted to host that game for people to play, would you be able to afford the kind of bandwidth it needs to upscale to, let's say, 1,000 users simultaneously on a Friday night? If you were hosting your game, do you have the computing power to have 1,000 players on the same Friday night? The whole house go burn. Your server just then you go eat up giddy for there. So we need to think ahead and be like, okay, I can start the race, but will I be able to end the race? That's why we need collaboration. So if I go away at tire, then you enter. Before you know, we reach. But what I've seen, which I think is a problem, again, my opinion, is that we have so many small silos of developers. This guy, they do that, this guy, they do that, this guy, they do that. And shared effort. It's not the best when you are trying to make a massive impact, right? Thunder clap, we for chow. When we clap, everybody, hey, what that? Then they look at us. Then from there, when we have the spotlight, our individual uniqueness will sell us. That's honestly what I think, you know.
It's interesting because for AU Esports Connect, the theme or the running tagline is to engage, to collaborate, and to grow. So if collaboration is the next step for us, I believe we've been hitting it on the. Thank you so much, Siri.
Thank you very much for having me. So apologies for being here.
Thank you all. Thank you for the session.
Thank you very much to our panelists, and I hope we all learned something. Yes, so right now we'll have an interlude, the GGC Bragging Rights campaign.
Skilled and strongest will win. Welcome to the house of settling scores in gaming. GGC Bragging Rights, where respect is earned, not given. Coming soon.
You know be TV top I talk for your face, you know yeah. You saw me Anna.
Are you tired of arguing or not being given the respect you deserve as the best gamer among friends?
Next tournament I meet you. If I don't score you for, you win the game.
Introducing GGC Bragging Rights, an official platform for settling scores between competitors in FIFA, Mortal Kombat, eFootball, and UFC. The winners will receive a plaque and a certificate of proof to commemorate their victory. It is time to turn verbal jabs into a reality check. Sign up and let's make this happen. Welcome to the house of settling scores in gaming. GGC Bragging Rights, where respect is earned, not given. Coming soon, to be shown on MX24.
GGC, building a great gaming community.
Topic is integrating esports and STEM education in Africa. For our moderator, we have Mina Ajomba. Can we hear it for her? Our first panelist is Joshua Opoku Ajimai from the IoT Evangelist. Also, we have Prince Boating Asari, a UXI designer. Let's hear it, please. And finally, we have Edem Kojospio, Africa Business Sport Podcast. Edem. All right, let's hear it for him as he joins us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are just going to spend about 30 to 40 minutes on the topic integrating STEAM education and esports in Africa. So you are welcome, my panelists. So to bridge the gap between esports and STEAM education, I'm sure there are some programs or initiatives that have to be implemented. And have there been any successful ones that have been implemented? If there have been, what are these programs and initiatives that have been implemented to be able to bridge the gap between esports and STEAM education in Africa?
Hello, good afternoon. I'm happy to be here. So I think when it comes to Africa, I wouldn't say we have a full integration of eSport into STEAM education. I would say we are now even building our STEM education. We don't even have a full STEM education, fully integrated. But then a lot of work is going on, both at the private sector and at the government level, to ensure that we can have a lot of more practical learning. I mean, we've all been to school where learning has become chewing and pouring. And you can't do that in esports. You can't memorize everything and then you play. You have to practice them. You have to play, right? So the same when it comes to learning too, it has to be practical enough that whenever you learn it, you can experience it and be able to remember whatever you learn. I don't think there's much happening with esports integration. I know a few companies in Ghana, like Leti Arts, who are also working on building learning apps as a way of gamification, so that students can be able to use this game to learn other stuff, right? So I think this is what I know as far as this is concerned.
Can you hear me? Am I loud and clear? Okay, so when it comes to STEM and esports in Africa, we've more or less sidelined it for a very long time, because the assumption is that you just want the kids to play. And we've been doing that for a very long time, and it's just been people playing. So, for example, for me, at a very early age, I believe 6, 7, I started playing on my PS1, 2, and I've been playing my whole life. I haven't really gone to school and seen any form of appreciation of, STEAM and esports. So it's a gold mine that if organizations decide to try and find a way to bridge the two, parents, perhaps here in West Africa, will be able to see the direct connection between esports and STEAM. And in my opinion, the only way to merge it is not necessarily to go directly to the primary or the secondary education, but go straight to tertiary and use that to disseminate it to the level ground of education, as we see in Europe. Because in Europe and in America, anytime an idea is supposed to make sense to the general public, is the universities that do the research come out with the studies, the case studies that show why this would be very viable and why the investments should come through. So it's not existent, but like he was saying, if private entities and government entities as well see the value in it, take their time to do the research and find the connecting dots, perhaps we may see a better appreciation and even more non-parents championing their children in esports.
Thank you very much. Over to you, Prince. So how can the gaming industry and educational institutions collaborate to create effective pathways for students to actually accept the inclusiveness of the esports. Yes.
All right. Thank you very much. From the perspective of where we sit in terms of STEM training, what we currently have is when the ministry announced what they call the STEM schools, which they are trying to make parents understand that the child can also apply for a school called STEM school, where they teach them basic STEM, science, engineering, and maths, right? But looking at the perspectives of gaming and esports, it's not two dependent disciplines. They are all together, combining STEM and then esports. So the main thing we have to do is to create more awareness or advocacies to make sure that the parents understand that if a child, just to get back here, the minister was making a statement and he was saying that parents need to encourage that when a child is being drafted and the child is chosen, has been selected to go for a STEM school, the parents will accept it. Because currently there's this kind of perception that if you are going to a STEM school, which one? He wants his child to be in one of the top schools, but how do you give the child a STEM school, right? So that kind of perception is already there. And STEM is something new that the ministry is trying to push it. So incorporating STEM and then esports is going to be another way we can also push the battle in terms of making advocacy to parents, the teachers, and also the young kids that going to in terms of collaborating with esports and STEM, it doesn't mean that you are throwing away what you are doing in the normal secondary school, but it's also part to create a future where those skills are very critical to work for these industries. There was a research that talks about the gap, the missing gap between academia and industry, right? So having esports or STEM is trying a way to bridge that gap where we can have young kids being enthused about STEM education, teaching them engineering, computer science, AI, data analysis, which is also critical in the field of esports. So children can learn and build games. They can also understand the concept which is being used of the analytics. They can also come down by studying mathematics, for instance, so they can get insights about this data analysis that they use. But the main challenge here is through two critical stakeholders involved, which is the parents and also the teachers, right? So if every parent get the understanding that they can give the opportunity to their young child to have access to this environment and study, the teachers also have to play a role because most of our parents will depend on our teachers to choose a career for their child or their daughter, right? So if we educate the teachers to understand these areas, then build their skills, it will also improve on way we can also incorporate it into our normal curriculum and also our activities that we do across the continent, especially in our part of the world where we are trying to bring STEM across the country. Thank you.
So Josh, please, can you add something to what he just said?
I think as Prince has said, imagine if growing up, like the first speaker said about our stories, yes, we all read them in book. What if they were games? Mm-hmm. That would have played still since we were kids. We could have still remember all our histories without really going back to read. So I think also gamifying some of the things we do, like making games for agriculture, so we can teach kids how to play games, to farm maize, to grow other things. That could be a way for them to learn. I'm also looking at a future where maybe you could just play a game and then get your WASI certification or uni certification without necessarily going to the classroom, right? Because you learn, you pass the test to the game, you have your results. Why need to go spend years in the classroom? So I think these are some of the things that if you're going to look at full integration of esports into STEM or STEAM, then it should be a collective approach, not you go to a traditional classroom, you read the books, then you come and play esports. I don't think that would be a full integration.
So I follow a lady on LinkedIn, and she's into integrating conventional education into the new, structures that we see with education right now. So she's a chemistry teacher, and she knows that chemistry is very boring. I'm sure a lot of you didn't enjoy it when you were in school. What she decided to do was that she would create arts out of it. So in creating the art, she developed an ebook where the children would read chemistry like a storyline. So imagine God of War, biochemistry version, where you are doing different activations and you see the end result. You probably not remember your CO2 being mixed with this, but you remember a challenge that you did that you saw this. And the more you play it, the more you realize, okay, I'm starting to grasp chemistry in a better way as compared to what my fathers and forefathers did. And out of that ebook, she decided that she would take it into the the digital world. So now something like a game where after reading the book, you give your feedback, you do a couple of activities, you see the results, your points are going up. Children are very competitive in the school environment. Everybody wants to be first or in top 10. Now, if you bring esports and you mix the math, the sciences, the geography, your Greek and whatnot with it, and you give children or your students an ability to develop themselves as per the points, then you match that directly with activity. So for example, if I go to PSEC, right, I'm good at math or good at chemistry, there's an esports game like that. Maybe I'm the top 10 in my class. As part of my, the fact that I've done well, I can get to go to EA, spend a day with them. So now you're linking school with things that are happening that people like. And when you do it that way, you'd find more people wanting to come in there to come and do these courses. If I know for a fact that my 3 years in school, by the time I'm done, if I'm top 10 in a certain course and I can get to go to EA to see all the top stars, the developers and whatnot, I'm putting in the efforts to be top 10, hands down. But if you don't have deliverables and you don't have end goals that match to the passions of the children, you fall short. I'll use my life as an example. I did mechanical engineering for my undergrad. In high school, I did science. Right now, my focus is in sports. Perhaps if those two had some aspects of sports in it, where for my undergrad, while doing mechanical engineering, maybe they brought Ferrari or McLaren or Williams or maybe AlphaTauri around for us to have conversations with them, start to develop projects and whatnot, perhaps I'll still be in there. But that aspect of sports wasn't. So if we can find the middle ground intentionally, not just doing it because you're trying to please parents, intentionally, you'd have more people actually wanting to come to school. And that's what we see in Saudi Arabia.
Thank you very much. Eko, before I come to you, Prince, when you were talking, you made mention of educating the parents and the teachers. That's actually part of a question I wanted to answer, but you've tackled that part. So what are some of the ethical considerations that need to be addressed when we are integrating this into our STEM or STEAM education?
Right. So beginning, the first thing that has to be there is like the perception, right? So our parents are like, when kids are playing games, they are wasting their time. And also, it's a distraction to their learning, right? So we need to also, as we are integrating esports and STEM education, one of the critical things we need to look at is the time in which the child spends on the screen or behind the console playing a game, right? So the first thing we need to do is to integrating it and also bridging the gap between the time in which the child will spend doing something else than just going to the classroom or in his normal school to learn. And when it comes to the ethical reasons that come to play also, there are lots of legalities. Within the first session, the speaker spoke about lots of legalities when it comes to startups and all those things. It's the same way. So the first thing will have to be like, when the child has the experience to learn these things, how are we able to get the product that he has built or developed to a point where it is legally right to be sold, right? And the age may also come to play. What age group are required to be involved in this kind of activities to ensure that they are doing it at the right way? Because in research shows that every kid has a life attention to something that he or she imparting himself into. So in a situation where you might not want the child to spend more time doing this thing aside from what he or she is doing. And another thing also we need to come up with in terms of letting them know the opportunities in those areas. So when the legalities come to play, how do I do things and do it in a safe way that is safe for me, myself, as the person into these activities, and also safe for the environment, and also safe for the world as a whole? Another speakers made the statement that this time, this kind of esports activities have lesser effect on the environment because someone is sitting behind the computer or the console or the game and then playing the game online and all that. So we're looking at it in a perspective where it doesn't have too much effect on the environment, on the child well-being, because a child can be behind the computer for the rest of the day playing, forgetting that he or she has even eaten, right? But if we guide them and ensure that their well-being is also catered for in terms of also integrating esports and STEM into what they are doing, it's going to benefit them, benefit the society, and also benefit us as a whole. One thing I also talk about is emotional intelligence. So if you are playing with an online person and the premise it's a competition and you lose, how do you manage your temper? Because you are dealing with a lot of people online. And so far as the guys call you, go boss, you go fight them, or you go use some words just because you lost to the game. So we need to also look at in a way that we can also psych their mindset that when they lose, it's not the end of their life. They have the opportunity to practice again and come back and beat the person who beat them, so that they can also have that in mind to manage their intelligence, their emotions, and also that if they lose, they don't go and do something bad to themselves or the society or the people around, or destroy things or properties. You can, in the game where you are playing, the guys call you go, ball, just take the game file, you throw it away. You destroy the game file. Next time, who's going to use to play the game? So all these things come to play to ensure that it becomes a safer environment for all of us to be able to use it and enjoy the benefits, and also learning STEM, and also in integration esports in our education system. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sorry. So, Echo, please, a little top up to what he said.
I think he touched on a couple. Wow. Okay, I think he touched on a couple of things which are very interesting. One aspect I like is the emotional intelligence. And anytime you watch on Twitch or social media, some of the esports events, you see that over the years, athletes, sports, they found a way to integrate themselves well with emotional intelligence. So and you've lost your game. Normally, you show your face, you're angry, you swear, whatnot, but now they're very professional. They go in there, it's like you're doing your job. Your boss wouldn't expect you to be screaming. Coming there, play the game, whether you lose or you win, there's still a sportsman. Sportsmanship is one of the values that you can see. And in school, we are taught to develop the habit of teamwork. So if you understand sportsmanship very early on, it makes it very easy for you to work with either your teammate from the faction that you're part of, or an opponent, regardless of how good or bad they may be as compared to you. So I really like that aspect that you mentioned. I think it's an interesting point of view that you can use for parents to tell them that if you're able to bring your children into these sports through STEAM, you'll know how to work with other people. And teamwork is very, very important. Because in Ghana here, more often than not, we don't work with other people. We like to do our individual. But if you find a way to work with other people, you find that the effort that you put in, even though you may think you're putting 100% alone, you may put in 50%, another person brings 50%. And that collective 100 is even stronger than the 100 that you're putting in. So collaboration through emotional intelligence is key.
Okay, thank you very much. So, on to Josh. How can esports be used to bridge gender gap in STEM education or STEAM education?
We currently have a challenge with getting more females in STEM education because STEM education focuses on science, technology, engineering, mathematics. And this I feel per culture and society, we don't want more of our young ladies to go in because there's a perception that they are difficult. So I think, again, every kid like game, irrespective of gender, every baby, we want to give them a phone, they want to play game, right? So naturally, we are born to be learning, but when we grow up, there's a restriction to what you can do and what you can't do. And that also keeps preventing more females to get into STEM. Now, when we talk about sports. I think one thing sports or game is very, very interesting to kids is because of the what we call dopamine, right? So when you play the game, you win something, the brain gets excited. When you overcome a challenge, the brain gets excited. And that's what drives us to do so many things in our world today. The same way, if we can introduce them in the right way, for me, I always think it's not a matter of playing the game, but what you're learning in the processes. Because it's a cognitive work. Once you're playing the game, your brain is rewired for challenges, for learning, cognitive, your attention span, your focus. All these are developed in the process. So if we can find a way to ensure that at a young age, we can get more females to learn games. So for example, if we can have recipe for games, assuming our females are always good with cooking, if they can cook by playing game, any kind of food they want to cook, a local food, they can be able to play a game to cook it. Then in that way, they'll be rewired to learn how to play games by cooking. Now, when you take that to the physical world, if you're able to go through this simulation over time, you don't need a game to learn how to do them physically. Let's take VR, for example. I think one of the best technology we have experienced in the 21st century is virtual reality. Today, no matter what program you want to study, if you have a VR with simulation, you can perform most of the challenging operation missions. If you want to go to Mars, go to space, learn about the planet, the eclipse, physically you can do that. But with VR, you can go into VR, walk on the moon, and do all that. So I think once we bring all these elements into learning, education becomes fun. It doesn't become a burden. And I think that's the best way to go, by making sure we can gamify education, bring more technology, and make it more interesting. And that way, nobody will find it difficult to go into STEM education. And as you look at the future, by 2030, a report by the World Economic Forum says that we're going to lose 800 million jobs globally. So 800 million people are going to lose their work to all these technologies, right? So the earlier we're able to get more young people to adopt these processes of learning and technologies, the better for us. Again, I wish people can play and be certified as somebody who goes to school and gets WASI. And if we can put our learning content into that format where if you want to play the game, pass your exams, get your certification, and it's equivalent to going to university or any institution to get a certification, then it becomes competitive, right? Then those who want to be more hands-on learning can practice hands-on learning. In our system today, if you're good at sports, you can't be good at academics. I don't know why. I don't know who created that parallel. So all the people who are good at sports in the classroom are not good when it comes to academic, in quotes, right? Because we don't have a system that encourages that non-abstract learning. You don't have to necessarily memorize and pass exams to justify your intelligence, right? So these are some of the challenges I think if we can bring in sports, create maybe virtual labs through game, you can use the app to be able to learn how to perform the chemistry practicals, the biology practicals, the physics practicals, even cooking and all that, then it becomes fun for everybody to learn. So I think it's the only way we have to look at it.
Yes, please, something to add up to what you just said.
Okay. Thank you. So looking at the gender gap, right? So let's go back and take it from the basics, right? So the first thing we have to do as a country, right? I always go back and say two things, the parents and the teachers, right? First, when you were kids, you're a female and a guy. When anytime a female gets into these areas of gaming and other things, your parents will shout at you, hey, do this, go here. So we, growing up, most of the male-dominated areas are more influenced by how our parents brought us up. So we end up in those areas and we grow up and we excel in those fields. So the first thing we have to do is to organize more activities that will encourage more females to sign up, right? Another statement is we can't be what you can't see, right? So we need to organize more of these events where it's more gender-based, where more females will given opportunity to have access to these programs, gaming, events, and other things. If you ask any lady here, do you know how to play game? They'll say, no, it's for only guys, right? So can we have a whole, let's say, esports event, only females? They should sign up, and let's see those who can play. Because if you see a female going in there, then it gives you the opportunity to also sign up and play with them. But if it's all guys, the lady will be like, it's only guys, I can't even sign up, right? And also mentorship. So show women or females who have excelled in these male-dominated areas, playing game, winning, and all those things, so that these young kids or these females will also see that, okay, if this person is able to do it, I can also be able to do it, and then I'll be able to also learn. And teachers will also encourage these females to accept these areas of STEM and esports in collaboration, so that when a teacher sees a girl into this space, the only thing the teacher can do is guide the person, mentorship, and counsel her that, okay, you can be able to achieve what you want to do if you set your mind to it and continue to practice and be where you want to be. So these three key areas will be very critical if you want to bridge that gender gap, so that the young female child will have the opportunity to be able to encourage herself in esports.
I think a very interesting point of view that investors and people who are passionate about have so many activations where the benefits for the females are much more than the males. So it's as simple as that. So for example, if two guys are to come to play God of War or FIFA or whatnot and are winning $1,000 at the end, if it's two females, they should win $5,000. And I say this because if you look at the UK right now, after the Lionesses won the females Euros, there are more coaching courses for females. There are more coaching courses for young girls. There are more academies now focusing on young girls. And when you look at the packages that they're bringing through, they are ridiculous. Like for instance, they're willing to offer a coaching course for a female anywhere in the world to go and do her UEFA coaching courses in the UK. That is not open to most men across the continent. So if you want to attract the women, your packages need to make sense. You can't give the same thing that you're giving to the men, because of course it's 10 times harder to attract the females when it comes to sports as compared to the men. All of us boys, we grew up playing, going to the game center. If they tell you right now, come and play and win 10K, it will happen. But for a female, you probably have to convince her 2, 3, 4 times. So your packages must make sense. And if it's esports and STEM, I'll give you a very good example. I know for Right to Dream, as part of their footballing operations, they also have a robotics operations where if you go in there, you may not necessarily be very good at football. You may be standard. But when it comes to the school part, you're very good. Through the robotics opportunity, they'll push you into the university. So the packages for the females there are much better for the males because they really want to convince them that, listen, this is lucrative, you need to go through this or to benefit you in the long run. So once the packages make sense, any female would see that, okay, it may not be my cup of tea, it may not be something I like. Let me explore just because of the packages, because everybody likes a very lucrative package. Once those packages make sense, their parents, even the females, their parents will push them, hey, quiet way, because once they know that they push you, they can benefit from it and you benefit long term. So the packages just have to make sense because awareness can only go a certain level. Ghana, we are good at awareness. We'll do a campaign right now. We'll be on GTV or whatever, but it doesn't hit home because the parents will just watch and say, how does it directly affect me? But if you bring a package to them, you go to either Wesley Girls or Bree Girls and you show them a very good package, nobody will tell you to think twice about it. You hop on real quick.
Okay, thank you. You've actually tackled the next question, which was steps to leverage the popularity of esports. I think I'll move to the other question, which is, they said, what can government and then the industry actually do to support the integration of esports and STEM education? What steps can they take to support the integration of esports and STEM education? So, Eko, I would like you to tackle that first.
Okay. On the previous panel, one of the guests spoke about how the gaming here in Ghana is controlled by the gaming institution. But when you look into their articles, it doesn't specify for esports. And so government doesn't really take it seriously, although GFA has something to do. It's not really serious as we see with other countries like even Kenya. Kenya is doing a way better job than us, and Saudi Arabia and other places. For me, I'm always saying that we need people who are radical in this space. So I'll give you an idea to explain how to do it. So for instance, if you're passionate about, esports, you're a potential developer, what I think you should do is that go in there, go and look for an international university that has some form of esports courses. You can use them to bait EA Sports to come in, develop that institution, make those numerous courses available to so many people, and that disseminates into the industry and for the little kids. So for example, the GPL in Ghana isn't big enough for EA Sports to come and sign a deal with them. But EA Sports has a deal with La Liga, EA Sports has with the Bundesliga, EA Sports has with the Premier League. So how will you convince EA Sports that there's a gold mine here that we can benefit from if only we go into... EA Sports has partnerships with some universities in America where they know that there are young people who may not necessarily be very good at playing, but we want to develop, we want to be part of the marketing, we want to be part of the partnerships, right? So they go in there, they provide packages for these universities. The universities provide the courses, people come in there, and they have EA Sports a direct source of employees. So when you give them a direct source of employees, they will then be willing to push it through to bring activation. So let's say, I'll give an example, Ashesi University, you're a game developer, you've connected with maybe Harvard or something. I don't really know the universities that have, but just use Harvard as an example. You've connected with Harvard, Harvard has connected you through with EA Sports, you come, you talk to Ashesi, you collaborate all of them together, form that partnership, make the courses available. I bet you, if they come and say, come and take a 3-month course in maybe game development or marketing in games, almost everybody here would want to take up that course, because the moment you do that, you're getting a job straight from EA. And that can also be fine. Like one of the speakers from the previous session was made mention to that. The stories that we have here, if EA Sports has employed maybe half of you, and they want to create a game for Anansi or Agokali or whatever it is, and you guys are part of that development, you would realize that you're now seeing practical pathways where you've gone in there, you've taken the course, you're now creating with them. For me, that's how really and truly you bait them, because you can have so many individual gamers or game developers doing their thing, but it won't have that impact. And if the government of Ghana sees that you've been able to bring these massive stakeholders and they are creating things in the country, they'll have no other choice than to revise the policies and support it. That's what we saw with, that's what I follow Saudi Arabia actively, because they have Gamer 8, which is like the biggest competition and individual entity in esports. And they actually started investing very early on through the academic systems with people going to take courses so that you get a better understanding. When you have a better understanding, it makes it easy for you to create and attract the people. So for the young people out here who love academics, perhaps take a course in some aspect of esports that can, in your journey, connect you with someone in Harvard who believes that they can get you someone in EA Sports. Imagine EA Sports comes to set here in Ghana for the whole of Africa. I mean, come on. The jobs alone for young people, you can't imagine. That's what I believe is the pathway.
Josh, what do you also believe is the pathway?
I think policy is key, because it has to be a national agenda. It doesn't necessarily mean they have to be run by governments. So we need a policy, we need an ecosystem, we need a community, we need a talent. Right? So we need to have all this collectively coming together, just like in the tech space too. So we have the investors, the legal, the communities, the startups. We need to do the same for the ecosystem for esports. And I don't think it's quite different. We have some systems that are working for some sector. We could adopt them for esports as well. So if we want to integrate, we also might need some agencies like the Ministry of Education, the Youth and Sports, all working together collaboratively with private sectors, then we can be able to achieve that.
So, Prince, how do you also think we can be able to achieve this? through policymakers and then the government policies too?
I think our first speaker spoke about the part, right, and also incorporating STEM into education. One thing I want to talk about is the infrastructure, right? So we have the ministry talking about STEM education. It's because they have made deliberate effort in building new STEM schools and labs so that every young child can have access to it. The same way government can also build infrastructures. Challenges in the area, connectivity, power, and all those things, right? So if government can create these infrastructures, that will make it easier for anyone to go into those fields. Then it becomes easier for everyone to have access to those information and resources and opportunities. So we can all have equal opportunities, whether here in Africa or outside here in Europe. And he also made the statement where this university can give the opportunity. If the young child had the access to this infrastructure, it will be easier for the person to learn those resources and use them that you are looking forward to. And also partnership with universities can also help government to be able to bring that kind of gap between the academia and then the industry through esports and STEM education. Thank you.
So before we wrap up this whole session, are there any barriers that we are actually facing with implementing esports in our STEM education here? And how can they be overcome?
Okay. So yes, I think there are barriers. Barrier I see is because it's a growing initiative from the private sector. It means we need to have a larger momentum. Startups to be able to influence policies. Again, academics sees gaming to be distraction. So that's a big problem in the first place. If they can't see that it's a tool that can enable kids to learn, then that's the biggest problem we have to address. Once we're able to overcome that, I think we'll be good. I also think in localization, most of the games we play, we're all non-local games, but we can localize our games, put our dialect in our games, our colors, our culture, then it becomes something that is made for us, right? So some of these things are things that I think we should look at. Once we're able to do that, I think we'll be able to fully integrate.
I think for me, it's mindset from the top is the government, because here in Africa, our governments tend to have the say of almost everything, as compared to the West, where they work actively with the private sector, because the private sector that tends to push the agenda. So if our governments start to see the value of esports first, and then start to see the value of esports integration with STEAM, it will be very easy for them to convince parents, because parents listen to the government. Our parents listen to the government. That's a given. So if, let's say, one day Minister of Information or Gaming or whatever says that, listen, parents, there's a potential for your kids to benefit from esports and STEAM, and this is what they need to do, and then go around having campaigns and whatnot, it will be easy for a policy to come out of a campaign like that. So the mindset needs to change first, where the government embraces it, because if you don't embrace it, your youth are all going to find other ways of, enjoying themselves or creating synergies. That's why betting is huge here. You go to Saudi Arabia, betting is not huge among the youth in Saudi Arabia. It's rather gaming that is huge there, right? So if the mindset shifts for the government first, it makes it easy for them to do campaigns, ads, have conversations, and start to bring young people in. I believe we'll see more esports and STEAM activations coming through.
Thank you very much, Eko. So, Prince, how do you think we can overcome some of these barriers?
I think in my initial statement, I made mention about the infrastructure. It's also one of the barriers. And also looking at the ecosystem, they need to play together, which is collaboration. Let me tell you a story. We ran a program with one of our partners in the school, and we brought in a STEM approach to what they do in their existing school. And part of it, we introduced a game so that the young kids can also play the game as we teach them, right? But initially, we didn't tell them that. But when they came to do assessment, they realized that we have incorporated some sort of gaming into it. They didn't like the idea. But after the whole program was over, we saw a lot of interest, right? In the first place, every child who was taking part of that particular class, they were highly involving. The attendance rate was very high because they were always eager to come back after every class to continue the game. It's more like a strategic playing game where they have an obstacle, get through a whole woods together from their place. And so we saw it to be that, okay, so if we are always incorporating this thing into it, then the main barrier is that the people who are making decisions and policies, if you're able to get them to understand that this is what is going to happen, then the kids are always there. Once you provide the opportunity for them, they can be able to engage themselves and use it. And this game was something that they come to the class, so we have a session where after we train them, we teach them coding and all that, then there's a time where they can go and play the game. And now they come together. Parents were calling us, the kids are home, thinking about it, like how they can beat that particular level. They don't even sleep. The next day, they are eager to come back to the class, 100%. Finish the coding, and continue, right? Challenge here is that getting the people in power and authority to understand the essence of these things that we are talking about so that it will be easier for it to be integrated, right? Collaboration, partnerships, and also access to resources will be very beneficial for government to be able to bring the opportunity to every child in this country, be able to have access to STEAM or STEM and also esports integration. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, just to add before we wrap up. In Singapore, they are planning on, in a few years to come, sports at the end, your tertiary education. Now they're actually trying to look for practical ways, like you mentioned, where students in the class can work with each other, get to understand how each student thinks, what their core strengths are, what their weaknesses are, opportunities for them to improve as students. And in the end, instead of giving you your grade and where you finish, they give you your progress sheet, and they show you what you can do to move on to the next level. So you realize that for the child, by the time I finish school, nobody's laughing at me that I was last or second to last, but I've seen the value with where I'm getting to. And STEM and esports has the ability to do that, because if it's, let's say, PE, where instead of giving them a grade, you create that scenario, they work as a team. Maybe you create like an F1 situation, an F1 Cupid situation where 5 people are supposed to work together, try and put this tire on this car. You see actively how teamwork works, which I believe is very better. So the mindset shift, once that mindset shift comes, we should be good.
Thank you very much, Ako. Thank you very much to all our wonderful panelists for enlightening us today about integrating esports and STEAM education, how beneficial it will be for the youth coming up. So this is the end of the second panel discussion. Please, I would like you to give a round of applause to all our panelists as they take their leave of stage.
Thank you.
How has FitGamer changed and impacted Cloud9? I mean, honestly, what's happened with the training we've been doing, we are now, when we get to this Game 5 situations, we're the team on stage that has energy, we're the team on stage actually is sharp, and we're the team that's raising the trophies.
At FitGamer, we implement a program that we've developed over decades of training, studying, and teaching sport science, and years of working with professional, traditional, and esport athletes. The scheduling and cadence of workouts, yoga, meditation, mental conditioning, nutrition, sleep, and lifestyle activities are based on what we have done with various teams and individuals since 2018. The FitGamer workouts are designed specifically for cognitive esport athletes, and we understand the pain points of gamers and the need to physically maintain the body and stimulate the brain in order to achieve optimal in-game performance. It is our mission to optimize gaming performance by maximizing human potential. Come join us.
With the proper guidance and with our structure and
with
our
the
systems.
with a 10 a.m. workout, I think it's impossible to be a bad person. Honestly, in this off season, I was being a complete degenerate. And then Jack messaged me one day, "Hey, you have to come to the 10 a.m. workout." And ever since then, I've been mentally clear. I'm a great person. I love my life. Love the off season. I'm relaxing. We're great. I'm sore.
Yeah, me too, actually. God damn, Juvy's destroying us lately.
Legend.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Awesome, thanks, man. Yes, so Africa Games Week, it's the largest gathering of African games industry professionals in the world. It's been running since 2018. And we gather the leading game developers in Africa. Developers from 22 countries attended last year, but are also striving to be inclusive of other verticals of the industry. So we also have a lot of the esports guys that get involved, and we're pushing into that realm quite heavily now. We talk to a lot of the content creators and get them involved. So we're really looking at pushing across the two key parts that we see are super important in gaming and bringing them to Cape Town. And those two, when we looked at it carefully, saw that, there's those that make games, and then there's those guys that are playing games. So and they're both very reliant on each other. If you make games, you're obviously wanting players to play it so they can test it and enjoy it, and at some stage possibly buy it. But players obviously want more games made, and they're going to fuel the industry. So there's a huge need for them to work together and know about each other, promote each other, and build this industry together. The two verticals, as mentioned, Make Games Africa. It's for publishers or studios from across the continent that want to meet with publishers, investors, other big international studios that maybe they could work with and do co-production with, outsource companies, and there's a lot of job opportunities that come from this. Year on year, we see African professionals getting work with Canadian and European and American and Middle East and Asian studios and getting opportunities. And under Make Games Africa, we do a lot of stuff with students. So we're driving students' involvement in the industry and looking on what are all the different parts of making games. So not just being a coder, but also being maybe a lawyer or an accountant or a marketing person or someone like myself who runs an event. So really driving it that You don't have to be super technical and a techie to get involved in the industry or a coder. You can actually be someone that supports the industry in multiple ways. And we do that as well by getting those students, teachers involved, and other teachers that are interested in the industry, various schools to be involved, even parents, and educating them like you can actually join this industry. It's thriving, it's growing, it's a massive industry, huge opportunity. So really getting people to understand what making games is all about and all the different parts of it. So really driving that, and that's Make Games Africa. And then Play Games Africa is the new vertical that we are bringing in this year. We've had some stuff with streamers and content creators in the past, but really sort of formalizing that with the whole ideas of what's going on in esports. Obviously a load of stuff happening with schools at the moment. We've just doing a lot of work with some local South African schools and high schools and getting those guys involved in programs. There's lots of esports tournaments happening, but there's often not a lot of people chatting about how they're growing their teams and what they need to do to develop it. So we're doing a lot of stuff with that. We've done a lot with esports associations in Ghana and South Africa and Nigeria and Kenya, but also bringing those kind of people together and really pushing the African narrative behind it as well. What is happening between these esports teams? Somewhere in Europe, you'll see loads of happening between Paris and France and Paris and Germany and Italy and Spain and Netherlands because they're quite close. But in Africa, obviously a big continent, so we often don't communicate so well. So it's bringing all those parties in, getting them working together, getting content creators behind it, pushing it from their side, various brands involved as well, and making sure that players, watchers and attendees and schools are all getting involved in this program and driving the industry forward. So yeah, great stuff happening this year. We have all kinds of things happening at our event. We have B2B meeting programs, we've got conferences, we've got guys playing games throughout the event as well. We do amazing things like bus tours around the city. We take people to big events in the evenings. The real focus for me as well is making sure people engage 4 or 5 times during the week of the event. So it's not just by chance you met someone for 5 minutes. We want you to have 4 or 5 long meetings with people and experiences so that you get to know them very, very well. And then just gives an idea of when and where it's happening and who should come. So it happens annually in Cape Town in South Africa. Obviously the tip of Africa, but there's a lot of stuff in technology that goes on in Cape Town. So we get a lot of support in that space, and it's a nice area for people to come and engage. We run the event on the last week of November, first week of December, so the 27th of November until the 2nd of December, with multiple things going on during that week. And then who should come? So we're looking for developers, we're looking for esports organizers and tournament organizers, we're looking for content creators to come, we're looking for publishers, investors, anyone that is looking to get into the game industry, a lot of educators as well. So we want schools and universities to come in and get involved, private and public both, to join the event and come and learn what the opportunity in gaming is. So obviously South Africa is always seen as the sort of the first country in Africa to go out and do stuff, but we've actually seen amazing stuff come out of the rest of the continent in the last few years. I think what we're trying to drive is that people often see Africa as a single country, taking that into mind, then let's rather don't get upset about that. Let's work together and say we are one continent, we're strong together. We've proven in the last few years that amazing games come out of Africa, and not really just South Africa. We're finding actually some amazing games coming out of better games in South Africa in the mobile space from Kenya. The biggest mobile game in downloaded mobile game in America at the moment from Kenya. or the President. That's an amazing game. We've got amazing games from people like Letty Arts in Ghana. We've got amazing games from Nigeria, from Malawi games. There are amazing games coming from across the continent. We find more and more. So there's definitely opportunity across the continent. We often see some great, like for example, Ghana's Esports Association. A good 2 years ahead of South Africa's association coming together. So there's great stuff coming from the rest of the continent. South Africa is sometimes good at marketing themselves, but there's definitely what we get excited about is finding these great stories from all over the continent and people around the world. Every time we speak to them, we want to get involved in Africa. We want to do something in that region. It's exciting for us. So yeah, I think that's really key for us, and what we're driving at the moment. I also do think, we're on a call today with an investor from Europe, and he's played games his whole life, and he said it's Africa where he wants to do something. So not something in Europe or Southeast Asia or South America where lots of interest is at the moment. They are keen on Africa. That's exciting, sort of the culture and background of all and opportunities at the moment.
Awesome.